What's up, my people? In this video, we'll be talking about finding the greatest common factor. Greatest common factor. This is something that you should have done in middle school, I think. So let's do a quick refresher. What's the largest number that goes into 6, 12, and 18? If you don't remember, one way to do it is, okay, what times what makes 6? Well, 1 times 6 makes 6. And then you could do 2 times 3. And then what times what makes 12? By the way, this is the much longer way. If you're great with your multiplication tables, this won't take that long. And what's the largest that goes into 18? What times what makes 18? 1 times 18. We got 2 times 9. And then you got 3 times 6, okay? If you look at all the rows, what is the biggest number that each one has? And you will see this one, the biggest number here is 6. They all have at least a 6, and that's the biggest number that all three of them have. Like 12 doesn't have a 9 and stuff like that. So the biggest number that all three of them have. Now, if I were to remove the 6 from each one, let's say I were to put on the outside of a parenthesis, what will be remaining is 1. What will be remaining is 2. And what will be remaining will be 3. Okay? When I multiply this back, 6 times 1, 6. 6 times 2, 12. 6 times 3, 18. Okay? What happens if, let's say, what if I had some variables? What's the greatest common factor? So you haven't done this yet. What is the greatest common factor of x squared, x cubed, and x to the 4th? Well, x squared, actually, I'm going to write it like this. Cubed x to the 4th. And let's erase that. X squared means, y'all remember this, x times x. X cubed means x times x times x. And x to the 4th means x times x times x times x. Okay? What is the smallest number of x's each one of them have? So let's say, for example, you and your friends, you have 2 x's, your friend has 3 x's, and another friend has 4 x's. And I say, everybody put down the most you can, but it has to be the same. The most everybody can put down is 2. Because if you try to do anything else, that wouldn't make sense, because a person with x squared couldn't put out 2 x's. So this is x squared. That is the greatest common factor, will be x squared, because the friend with, or the person with 2 x's, that's the most that they can pull out. Okay? So when I do that, x squared is the greatest common factor. Here's the hint. When you're doing greatest common factor of variables, it's always the one with the smallest exponent. So, for example, let's say I were to throw this one at you where you don't write, you don't want to write all these out. Let's say I did x to the x to the 25, x to the 75, x to the 92. The greatest common factor out of those is going to be x to the 25. Because they all have at least 25 x's. This one is just its max. So that's the key, okay? So now we're going to apply that concept to algebra, okay? So here we go. Let's look at some algebra questions. So we got to figure out, what is the greatest common factor? What do both of these have in common? Well, 15 x squared and plus 25. I'm going to write like that. So 15x squared, well, 15 is really 3 times 5. And x squared is really x times x. And 25 is 5 times 5. Okay? So, what do they both have in common? You'll be like, well, they both have the 5s. So I'm going to take a 5 out because that's what they have in common. Everything else has to go back in the parentheses. So I have a 3. X times x is x squared. And then I have a 5. That is a positive 5. That is factored. So we're trying to figure out what can we see and what can we do to get, what do they all have in common? All right. So let's do the next one. Greatest common factor. 4x cubed and 16x squared. So 4x cubed really means 4 times x times x times x. And 16 is 4 times 4 times x times x. Now, what do they have in common? Well, they both have a 4. Okay, I'm going to take that 4 out. And they both have at least 2 x's. I'm going to put that over there. 2 x's, x times x is x squared. Remember, when we're factoring and it's variables, it's going to be the smallest exponent. And in this case, right here, there it was. Okay? Now, what's left? Well, only thing remaining from this one is an x. And then this was a plus. And only thing remaining from this one is a 4. So that goes back in. And that is exactly how you factor those. Ooh, let's get to one that's a little bit bigger. Okay? Now, let's do it a little bit different this time. I want to, so that you don't have to draw all this out every time. This is only if you need to. Only if needed. If you need some practice, okay? So for this particular one, 100 is 10 times 10. And then this negative 90 is negative 9 times 10. And this 20 is 2 times 10. What do you notice they all have in common? They all have a 10. So we're going to pull that 10 out. Okay? That's how you start. And next thing is, what is the smallest exponent? The smallest exponent is 3. That comes out. So you first figure out what number they all have in common. And remember, this 10 came from that they all have a 10. And then this exponent right here, this came from the fact that this is the smallest one. Okay? Now, to finish this, what numbers do I have left? I have a 10 left. I have a negative 9 left. And I have a positive 2 left. Okay? Now, we got to figure out how many exponents are still inside, though. If we had 7 and we took out 3, that means we have 4 remaining on the inside. If we had 4 right here, but we took out 3, that means we have 1 left right there. You don't have to put the 1. And if we had 3, but we took all 3 out, there's none left. So my final answer is going to be 10a cubed. Then this is going to be 10a to the 4th minus 9a plus 2. And if the exponent things is kind of confusing you, let's go back up here. Right? If this person right here took their 2 out, they would have 2 remaining. These 2 plus these 2 make 4. Whatever I take out plus whatever is remaining is what I started with. Okay? So when we go back down to here, what I take out plus what's remaining should be what's is what's up there when I started, okay? So let's look at this one. Let's see. 7 is, this is -7 times 1. 10 is -2 times 5. And 9 is 3 times 3. And if you notice, none of these have a number in common. So guess what? No numbers are coming out. Do they have any variables in common? Yes. They all have at least one in. This is the smallest one. So that's what's going to come out. And because, you know, I know that no numbers are going to come out. So I'm going to put my -7 back right here. If I have one in out and I started with 4, that means that there was 3 left on the inside. Minus 10, because remember the numbers didn't change. If I started with 2 and 1 came out, there's 1 left. And if I started with 1 and I took it out, the only thing remaining is that 9. That is the final answer. Ooh, this is a good one. Let's see. Okay. What makes 8, what's the biggest number that can go into -18, it can go into 60, and it can go into 54? I'll give you a hint. Actually, not necessarily a hint. The answer is going to be 6, okay? So I'm going to pull out the 6. That's going to go first. So I'm going to pull out the 6. I know that all of these, so this one is 6 times -3. This one is 6 times 10. And this one is 6 times 9. So I'm going to pull the 6 out. So that's gone. We already did that. So when we put the numbers back in, we're going to use -3, we're going to use 10, and we're going to use 9. Okay? So put the parentheses. Oh, not yet. Not parentheses yet. Now, I look at my variables. What is the smallest one? Smallest one is that one. Okay? So that one comes out. Now, we got to finish filling in the rest of this. Okay? So I got this -3. And I started with 6. I took out 3. Means I have 3 left on the inside. That's a total of 6 of them. Plus, I have my 10. And then I had 5 of these. I took out 3. That means I have 2 left. And finally, we have our 9 over here from there. And then I had 3. I took out all 3, which means there's nothing left on the inside. This is your final answer. Okay? Now, finally on number 6, this is 9 times 1, -5 times 1, and 1 times 1. Yeah, pulling out 1, that's the one thing, like you pull out 1, it's a waste of time. Don't pull out 1. I'm going to pull out anything larger than 1. So they all have 1s in common, so we can't do that. They all have an X. They don't. That's no good. I don't like, that makes me sad. So guess what? This is already as low as it can go. So my answer is just the same exact thing. And one thing I want to point out, remember, I want you to pay attention that 6 times -3 is -18. 6 times 10 is 60. 6 times 9 is 54. And remember the exponent rule from the previous video. This number plus this number should be that number. This number plus this number should be that number. This number plus, oh, there's no number there, so this is the only one, should be that one. Okay? If you need to replay this and listen to it again, go for it. But that's it for this one. If you have any questions, I'll see you in class.